Australian-born wife now has Hollywood's respect.
And then he just laughed. He just laughed at me.
You know, I mean, now the two of us, you know, we've been together for 10 years. We've grown up together, really. You know, we were
10 years,
yeah,
huh?
we were so, you know, we were really kind of naive when we started out and thinking that, not realizing the effects of how people would behave. But she said, she loved me, and we loved each other, and she didn't care. She's the first person to say, you know what? In my own country where I came from, I was a respected actress. And they were, you know, a lot of times they weren't fair at all in the analysis and evaluating. But you know, she has, you know, talent prevails. Talent prevails.
You know, when you look at your old movies, it's almost like going through a scrapbook. You know, you see, isn't it Days of Thunder? This is a movie I met Nick on, you know?
I know.
20 years from now, when you look at Eyes Wide Shut, what are you going to say? Oh, that's the movie that...
That's the movie that we made with Stanley Kubrick. That's that time. That's that time. No. No.
That is that time. Coming up in our next hour on This Morning, Tom tells us about the gut-wrenching soul-searching he did quite willingly to work with the late Stanley Kubrick. Can you remember well, Star Wars had this buzz behind a movie like this. Eyes Wide Shut, people have been talking about this
They've been talking about the erotic aspects of it.
Right. There are erotic aspects of it, but it's more of a thriller. I've said this before, when you are happily married and your husband or your wife says, you know, I don't think this is going to work. And all of a sudden, you talk about a scary movie, that's a scary adult movie right there.
Another type of fear.
Yep.
Well, now let's take a look at...
We've all seen the ads. Cruise, Kidman, Kubrick, three of the movie world's heaviest hitters, teaming their talents to make Eyes Wide Shut. While almost no one has seen it, everyone is talking about it. When Tom Cruise signed on to star, he did it with his eyes wide open. He knew director Stanley Kubrick was a maverick who didn't punch a time clock. 18 months later, Tom is starring in the long-awaited film about lust, betrayal, and fear.
You've been trying to pick a fight with me, and now you're trying to make me jealous.
But you're not the jealous type, are you?
No, I'm not.
Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut might also be called 1999, a sexual odyssey. Tom Cruise and his real-life spouse, Nicole Kidman, play a couple whose marriage is shaken to its core after she confesses her lust for another man. Furious about his wife's imagined betrayal, Tom starts cruising New York's sexual underground.
And why haven't you ever been jealous about me?
Well, I don't know, Alice. Maybe because you're my wife. Maybe because you're the mother of my child. And I know you would never be unfaithful to me.
Which is scarier, knowing your wife is having an affair or thinking your wife is having an affair? Which is scarier to you?
I think thinking that, do we know how, you know, here's a guy who feels very safe and secure in his life, in his relationship, and he's coasting. You know, it begs the question of, you know, first of all, is it a sin thinking the thought? I mean, how much emotion?
Ask Jimmy Carter about that.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? You know, and I think that is a dilemma and a question that, you know, all couples have. Do you discuss it? Do you not discuss it? Is more destructive to do that, or is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Nick said that people are going to look at your marriage between the two of you differently after seeing this movie.
Nick. I don't know what, you know, I really don't know what people are going to think when they see this. But that's not the end, is it?
No.
Why don't you tell me the rest of it?
Did you have to go deeper in your soul to act in this movie than you've had to in other movies? This is not Top Gun. No. This is not Mission Impossible.
No.
This is, it's very adult.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gets blown up. There are no car crashes except in the mind.
Yeah.
Was it tougher?
You know, as an actor, you've got to go to those places, definitely. Yeah, it was, you know, it was challenging and it was exciting. working on the scenes and developing those scenes and developing the character. And you have to go to those places. I mean, the subject matter begged for it, and we really, it was a great challenge. It was a great challenge, and you know, we didn't back away from it.
Even in their personal lives, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman don't back away from a challenge. They took legal action after a London tabloid said they were both gay and their marriage was a sham. Tabloids write stuff about you. You sue. You win. Why do you sue?
Look, we're private people. We are human beings. You know, we are human beings. We have feelings, and and more importantly than that, we have a family now. We have children. And I think that for years we were told, and you know, just don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, and suddenly all these kind of rumors and gossip all of a sudden starts getting printed in, you know, legitimate magazines, and you know, and I'd send letters asking for an apology. You know, it's not true, and then you start getting letters back where they say, you know, you know, and I just said, you know what? I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And it's not right. And if they're not going to be responsible, I am going to make them be responsible. You know, I have kids that go to school. I have kids that, you know, and their friends have family. And there are ramifications. And I think that if you want to print things, you know, certain things are open, but when it comes down to it and it's going to affect our children, we have to make a stand, and we don't keep any of the money that we get from these lawsuits, and we give it all to charity, and, you know, pay the lawyers off, and the rest goes to charity, because I don't want that dirty money. But if they're going to do that stuff, we're going to turn it into a positive thing. Where exactly are we going? Exactly.
Tom Cruise is an actor who seems to know exactly where he's going, and dealing with the press seems a small price to pay, if you get to work with the likes of the late director Stanley Kubrick.
It might be better to just play it as a medium shot with the situation.
Is it hard being asked all of this without him here?
It is difficult. It's difficult because, you know, the conversation that people have with the filmmaker versus the actor in the film, you know, there's things that I don't feel is my place to answer in terms of the movie, and you know, no one can ever fill that spot as the director, and certainly not in the shoes of Stanley. So it's been difficult. It's bittersweet, actually.
Tom talking about the late Stanley Kubrick. Tomorrow, Tom and I talk about the great friendship he developed with Stanley Kubrick and the ways he's still dealing with Kubrick's unexpected death.
You know, Mark, after seeing those clips, I'm more impressed now with Nicole Kidman as well. Looks like a great role for a woman.
It is a great role for a woman. It's funny. There was so much false information out there. They were both psychiatrists. They were all naked in the movie. There were, and all of that's Kubrick. He's very secretive, and not secretive. He just doesn't tell you everything. And it was very refreshing going into the movie, not knowing what it's all about, because that's what happens these days. You see all the trailers, but it's a good role for both of them, and it's a good movie.
Thanks. It is. What is it? 1:15.
It is 18 after the hour. This is the day a lot of moviegoers have been waiting for. Opening day for Eyes Wide Shut, starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Sadly, it's a day director Stanley Kubrick never lived to see. Tom Cruise has given very few interviews about the movie or the loss of his friend Stanley Kubrick, but he did give one to us.
Don't nod your heads when you're talking. Just talk naturally to each other.
Director Stanley Kubrick passed away shortly after he finished editing Eyes Wide Shut. It took the meticulous filmmaker a year and a half to shoot his final film. And during that time, both Tom Cruise and his wife and co-star, Nicole Kidman, became close friends with the genius behind the camera. When he died, you were in Australia, and you flew and flew and flew to get to New York, to get Nick, and then go to London. Yeah. What were some of the thoughts that were going on? Because that's a solitary thing to do, to fly those many hours to go to a funeral.
I was on the plane, and it just seemed like it was never going to end. And somehow, it was the strangest experience. I was not altogether there and feeling and trying to take care of Nick. Nick was, you know, just absolutely kind of shattered, and I think anyone that goes through that experience, when you experience an intense relationship like that, you don't know how to. I don't know how do you act? You know, everyone's devastated. It's just such a huge loss.
You will kindly remove your mask.
Throughout his 13-film career, Stanley Kubrick ripped the mask off of the hypocrisy of war in films like Full Metal Jacket, dissected man's violent nature in A Clockwork Orange, and showed how the nuclear family can be a nuclear reactor in The Shining.
Here's Johnny!
People who are directors, who are in the business, speak of Stanley Kubrick and they use the word genius. Why?
Every time you see his movie, he's ahead of his time. You can't just see his movie once and feel that you've comprehended the picture. It's a movie that invites the audience and challenges the audience.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
There's so many different elements to Stanley that made him brilliant. I think with Eyes Wide Shut, he just in one aspect, the ability to create tension with as little movement. This little, if you were a painter, it's, creating an impression with, no paint.
He was the man from the hotel, the one I told you about.
I knew that the time that he took to make a movie and the commitment that he gave to every film that he made, I knew that it was going to be a huge commitment from myself and from Nick emotionally, and also time, out of my work. And I was willing to go there, and it was a great adventure.
Going anywhere special?
No, I'm just taking a walk.
It was a huge time commitment for Cruise, an 18-month movie-making marathon, where Kubrick would call on his actors to do take after take after take.
How'd you like to have a little fun?
And if we ever got to the point where I was tired, he never wanted us to be tired or too exhausted when we were working. He'd always just, is it too much right now? Let's just take a break. Let's talk about, let's talk about the, the science of down blocking, I mean, you could discuss anything with him. And I look forward to being around him. He was very generous with us and took care of us when we were working.
Wanted someone to challenge him on the set. Wanted someone to spar in a good way. Did you do that with him?
Yeah, but yeah, he did, and he, even if to challenge the idea, it was never. You work together. You just work together. I mean, it was Stanley's vision. I never went up to Stanley and said, "Hey, Stanley, put the camera here." You just didn't do that, and also you just, you don't want to do that. You just kind of sit back and you're on for the Kubrickian ride.
For the Kubrickian ride. On Monday, we talked to Tom's wife and co-star in Eyes Wide Shut, Nicole Kidman. He takes challenges, works with great directors, Oliver Stone, born on the 4th of July. He's working with Steven Spielberg, Minority Report. That's his new